Yeah, it was really nice to meet with a lot of, global community of professionals. Y- I was just actually thinking about, what is diversity, what is inclusion. It's really about being global in your approach and just, sharing, what are the kind of things that make you feel sensitive about your bosses. Do you feel that your bosses are being managed well? Do you feel that your bosses are not being managed well? And it's really funny because when I look at social media and look at content, I see that a lot of people are sharing stories in terms of what their opinions are and what is the kind of information they have. But being informed is not that great. Also, having an opinion is not that great. It's good to kind of give reviews, and it's good to say that my opinion does not agree with yours. The information that you have is wrong. But at the end of the day, there's a little bit of a sensitivity in which social media should actually share stories. And it's funny that there are many people who are talking to their television, and there are many people who just keep talking to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, where they're waiting for the headlines. They're waiting for all the mass headlines to come up, and they basically, if there are certain headlines, they actually communicate with them. And that is really sad. When I've lived in countries that have a long spell of winter. Canada also has, like, it's gray, and for 4 months, 5 months, it's really gray and cold. And in this kind of long winter season, there are times when people can get depressed. There can be people who would be going through seasonal affective disorder. And when there are long spells of winter and this cold, it's always kind of good to look at what is the kind of a role that you have in your business, in your community, in your neighborhood, how diverse you are, how inclusive you are. And by diversity and inclusive, one has to be sensitive in terms of what the people's background is. You cannot deal with people cannot just sort of talk to everybody in the same style, tone, and fashion. And it's good to be people sensitive, but it is also good to understand each person, their stories, and be very sensitive to that. So when I actually look in terms of a lot of young students, they are on their phone and they're swiping right, swiping left. And basically, they are saying that, hey, I want to be invited to this private event, I want to be part of this. And then, when one person invites them, one lady invites them, they all go there. Then they actually take care of the lady's kids. Then they say, hey, we are very close to you, you are our close friend. Then they become part of a family. Then they start becoming like fans of that family, and they start doing community work with them. That lady traps them into their little house, and then they become like loyal to her. She feeds them, and they don't have the money, but they go to her, they attend to her. And they're all on the dark side of the web. One day, when the lady comes out and says that, hey, I want to share this with you, then they will all come there and they will follow her. So most of these and most of the people who are on the mobile, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Twitter, they are swiping right, they're swiping left. They're looking at in terms of what are the kind of places they need to go to, who should they network. And sometimes these networking forums are very dodgy, and sometimes those networking forums are so dubious that one does not know where they are going, what they are up to, why they are there, and why they are going for all these kind of blind dates. Even when it comes to job related networking, many of the employers say that we not allow access to data, we don't allow access to even it's many of the employers are behaving like the government of Canada election booth. So when you go for voting, you're not allowed to have your mobile, you're not allowed to take your selfie. Many employers in the region also behave like that, and they say, hey, you're not allowed to take your mobile, not allowed to go there. So when people go there, they're without their mobile, they're without their phone, they're without anything like that. And at that particular point of time, they are supposed to force to interact with all kinds of people, all kinds of information. And that's why, and that's the time some people get confused, some people get derailed, few people quit, few people are not performing. And then there's somebody who comes there and says, hey, you're not performing because you're not connecting to the other person who probably is not of your background, but in light of teamwork, you should. So I think leadership has to be democratic, leadership has to be transformational, and leadership has to be superior, right? Like leadership is like love. Love is addiction in many ways, and love is supposed to be superior. It has to be, so good that it actually allows people to rise up in love and be able to just sort of enjoy that. They should feel so excited about love, and they should feel so excited about their of being in love, that it should be the most superior feelings. It should not be a mediocre feeling. And similarly, I think leadership has to be very superior. It has to be so superior that when you move up that leadership ladder, it has to be so extraordinary that there is nothing mediocre about the leadership that you have. And I think that's something which has to be done by leaders who are unbiased. They are able to appreciate all cultures, all backgrounds. They are able to not just talk about human being uh, as just a color, but as also a human being in terms of what they should be doing on inclusion, uh, how they can talk about inclusion and diversity, give insights, focus in terms of what happened to a couple of immigrants who came, and they came in from a war area, and they were looking at just getting a place to live and a shelter. So there are many homeless refugees who came to Canada, and they are looking at getting a shelter, and they are very different from many people who've come here to kind of fulfill their dreams. So obviously every immigrant story is different, every youth story is different, and credible leaders have to incorporate diverse and inclusive forces and put them together in a way that makes them look good, makes their bosses look good, and makes them look like they are the Fortune 100 company, they are the next Google, Apple, or a global corporation.